got shot.
It was life and death.
Somebody's killed your son.
I think both sides have to come together.
When it comes to African-American men, we only get the mug shot.
You know, it's abnormal.
Was it really worth it?
You gotta be the tough guy.
Tim Jackson presents How to Kill a Black Man, available on Amazon Prime Direct. This is the No More OGs podcast. From controversial topics to creating financial freedom, we will talk to real people about real situations, providing real solutions. No celebrity endorsements, bringing you unfiltered discussions, dope interviews, and giving you the blueprint to create the culture that you will be proud of. So kick back, turn up the volume, and let's get to it. Here's your host, yours truly, Mr. Purposely Man, Mr. Retired at 37, Mr. Tim Jackson. What's going on? It's your man, Tim Jackson with the No More OGs podcast. I am your host. And listen, man, this is repeat offender week. This week, I've brought back two people that had some dope episodes. And I actually wasn't even thinking about this person to come back on because she did so well last time. And she's just been so busy. The last time she came, I think she was running for office. And she was out there busting people upside their head with the truth and nothing but the truth. Someone that had me on her show, and I had so much fun on it, playing Drummer the Plumber. Y'all, I'm going to have to drop the link in the description so y'all can go back and watch your boy's acting debut. But listen, we have someone here who occupies a very, very important role, a very important seat in our county at the 255th Court, at the Dallas Civil Court, correct?
Family
Court.
Yeah.
And she ran a grassroots campaign by definition. Typically when we hear grassroots campaign, there's I don't know if you want to call it a stigma or an idea of what it is, but this is somebody who literally got it out the mud, who sat back for years and meticulously planned her way to the bench by removing who she believes someone to be a disservice to our county. We can just put it at that. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some more things that's going on because, as you all know, we have started and launched the lobbying faction. It actually is going to be debuted to the world on December 7th, 2024 at the African American Museum. So stay tuned. And if you're watching this afterwards, make sure you come and check us out. But listen, I'm going to present to some and introduce to others a good friend of mine, somebody I cut up with on social media all day long. Like, she got this one little gift. Every time she posted, I'd be laughing. But you guys, give a warm welcome to Judge Vonda B, or Vonda Bailey Shaw. What's going on, dog?
Oh, man. It's been a busy day. It's been a busy week, and it's only Tuesday. The Cowboys lost last night.
Man,
so
you went to the game, right?
I went to the game.
Lord, I went last week, and I had some amazing seats. I was in some VIP section. We took a dang, they chauffeured us to the game. And they got their head buzzed last.
Oh, my gosh. You know, when we turned on Division Street,
yes,
that's the route that we always go. And usually it's so packed, you can barely get onto the street from the highway. There was no one on the street, even leading up to the stadium. Crazy. No one on the street. And my friend girl and I went together, and she was like, okay, is this normal? And I was like, no, this is not normal. I said, normally it is really, really packed, like bumper to bumper. And when we got in, I just couldn't do anything but laugh because the seats were empty.
Which is crazy.
It was full. AT&T Stadium last night was full of Texans fans. So, I mean, I'm not a hater. They beat us.
They beat the brakes off of us. They didn't beat the brakes off of us, but they made it look easy.
Oh, yeah. Very easy. I mean, and it's really unfortunate. You know, you grow up as a Cowboys fan, and then you go to a game, and the entire stadium is full of
the opposing side.
And it's like, what are we doing here? But we left before the little traffic that could.
Listen, that's becoming the norm. You know what I'm saying? You and I, we were alive when the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I talk crap. You know, on the No More OGs page, I troll the Cowboys every chance that I get because you know what? I'm a vested fan.
Absolutely.
You know, I remember going to Kmart in the 90s and taking my pictures with my Cowboy shirt on during the Super Bowl. Me and my sister left after halftime to go take our photos at Kmart because they was beating the brakes off the Bills, right?
Yeah.
Try saying that 5 times fast. Beating the brakes off the Bills. But seriously, they haven't won in so long. Like, I remember my niece was born in 96 or 95. And that was the last time that they won. And, you know, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But listen, I want to get down to the busy of the nest because, you know, you're doing some amazing things.
Thank you.
I've had the opportunity to come to your court and sit in. You've put on workshops. You're doing a lot for the community. You're literally doing everything that you said you were going to do. And that's rare in politics, unfortunately, specifically with black politicians. And I'm going to say that as a black man because I just like I can be critical of my Cowboys, I can be critical of my people. There's nothing wrong with accountability. And what I see in our county, with the exception of a few, because I think whenever you say this, people automatically think about one or two people.
Right.
What I see in our county is people get into these seats and they do nothing. And they sit around and they go to their balls and their galas and they talk their crap about, the Republican opposition, and they speak the points that appeal to people's souls and their hearts, but they don't do anything to enforce laws. They don't do anything to properly interpret laws as judges in many cases. They rely on, dare I say, their magic. And you can interpret that how you want to. Y'all know I'm petty, so I don't shoot no strays. I just say what it is. And then what I also notice is that it becomes more of a social, experiment, if you will, more so as an experiment or people actually working for the people. So just tell me about your experience. You've been in that seat for 2 years now, right?
Almost.
Yeah.
It's crazy how fast it goes by. So one of the things I wanted to make sure I didn't do was a lot of what you mentioned. I didn't want to be the elected official that was known for only attending galas, for only showing up for photo ops, kiss babies' foreheads, and, do the social media posts for purposes of making people believe that I'm really out in the community. I didn't grow up like that. I'm born and raised in Oak Cliff. My parents worked in the legal field. I saw them work behind the scenes on other people's campaigns, which back during those days, it was very different. The courthouse was all Republican just about. Mm-hmm. And so I saw these things coming up. And I always said that these are the people that I want to mimic. And a lot of them I'm still really good friends with. And one thing I did like was their work ethic. So my parents' work ethic, the judges that were on the bench back then, and I'm talking about when I was like a little girl, 7, 8 years old, growing up, seeing these people just giving
when you
back.
didn't know what someone else's opinion was, you based life on what you experienced and not what somebody else told you to think.
Right. And that's one thing I can appreciate about my parents. My parents were never one that were like, okay, you need to support only Democrats because you're black, or you need to support these Republicans because these are our friends and that's who you know. It was always based on our experience. Vote for who you see actually putting in the work. So that was the foundation that was laid before me when I was a little girl. So that's all that I knew. So I wanted to make sure that I was not only showing up to those events, because going to those events are important.
Yeah.
However, putting in the work and having visibility in the community not only requires you to show up and dedicate your time, it requires money too.
It does.
I put a lot of money back into my community, from schools, from little league organizations, from bigger foundations, my friend and I that have our scholarship at the law school that we attended, the Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Houston, Texas. We're actually
the only good thing that comes out of Houston, that plus I-45 North.
North. You're north, because south is, the traffic is ridiculous. But, we're getting ready to expound upon some things even with that. So when you call yourself an elected official, you have to really break down what that means. Being a judge is more than just showing up to a bench, signing orders, and listening to people's cases. The court it's like a misconception of what people believe that the court actually is. It is a resource.
It is.
We oversee so many different types of people and so many different types of situations that some of us would probably never experience in our lifetime. So how do you help these people that are coming before
No, it's
you?
funny you say that, because, and I'm not here to name drop. Y'all know me. I don't name drop. I don't like to even give people clout on this show. But I work with Judge Kelly. Mm-hmm. And she has the program too, Intercepted. And it's such a resource. And honestly, and I can't speak for any other judges, not to say that they don't have the programs, but I had never seen any program like that where if you got caught up, you had a felony, you were a first-time offender, you're under a certain type of age, they can give you an opportunity to have your records expunged, and they bring in people to help you find jobs. Like there's a guy who I work with called, it's a company called Unlocking Doors. And if you've been arrested one time, you qualify. That's the qualification. You have to have been to jail.
Right.
So if you've been to jail or prison, you qualify. Like I couldn't, I guess I could, but hey, according to the expungement, that never happened. But I always tell people like, and they put people in like jobs that started like $70,000, $80,000 a year. You know what I'm saying? So that was the first court that I saw that modeled. And then when you made it, I was just taken aback by all of the resources that you were providing to that court, specifically for the men. And we'll talk about that because men don't think they can navigate, that court. But I'm sorry, go ahead. I just want to plug that because I don't think people understand that y'all do more than just bang a gavel and sentence people.
Well, we're supposed to do more. And that's also a misconception as well. We do. And when I say we, I'm specifically talking about a lot of our judiciary, specifically in Dallas County, because you're talking about majority of benches that are operated by Black women. We have to do a better job of not just showing up and telling people to vote down ballot. We have to do a better job of explaining to people what the role of what they're voting for is. We have to explain to them the importance of the role. And we also have to show some sort of accountability.
So you mean to tell me that I just don't need to vote for you because you're a Black woman?
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. And matter of fact, please don't. Don't just vote for me because I'm a Black woman.
But you have Black girl magic.
I've never operated under that. I'm not magical. I work hard. There's a big difference. There is nothing magical about me.
Because when I said that shit, y'all got mad at me and told me I didn't love Black women. You know what I'm saying? And I the thing that we do in our community too often is when accountability is brought to the forefront, there's going to always be an attack.
Oh yeah, listen, it's always pushback.
And listen, I love my people, but I'm in a fraternity. I'm not going to say which fraternity I'm in. You do your own research. But even we had these conversations in our group chat during the election, and the thing was, well, y'all need to go out there and support Kamala because she's a Black woman. And I said, that has absolutely nothing to do with her policies and what she can do for this country. Because if we did that with President Obama. I voted for President Obama the first time, Judge, on the strength that he was just a Black man. He could have had a pitchfork and a tail and horns coming out his head, and he would have got my vote. The second time around, the only reason I voted for President Obama is because he reformed the GI Bill, and I'm a veteran. So it benefited me immensely. I was able to quit my job and go back to school, and they paid for my mortgage. It was a lick. It actually helped me to become a 7-figure earner because I was able to leverage that. But if we could keep it a buck, I personally think Mitt Romney was a better choice. But Obama did something for me. President Obama, I'm not going to reduce that. President Obama did something for me and my protected class, which was veterans. Although he did nothing for Black people, I fell in that protected class. So after that election, I told myself, I don't care what color you are. I don't care if you lived across the street from me. What is your platform? And I found myself being like the only person doing that in 16. And then like in 20, I saw more people doing it. In 2024, everybody was on it.
Oh, yeah. Especially those of us who are considered the older millennials, right? Because we have to think about our generation. We're the last generation that will know what life was like before the advancement of technology and after it. We literally are the last generation to do that, right? So because of that, we have so much insight and we can get ahead of things a lot faster than people that are older than us. And that is a benefit. Again. And because of that, we cannot allow ourselves to get pigeonholed and believe that the best thing we have going for ourselves is race and gender. I don't endorse that at all. I'm a hard worker. I'm extremely prepared. As a matter of fact, I took the board certification for family law last year. I was unsuccessful. I didn't pass it. I took it again. That is a very, very difficult exam. It tests the nerves of your nerves of your nerves because literally it is an element-based exam. Essentially, the state of Texas wants to know that before they give you this, what do you call it? Before they give you this designation as an expert, they want to know, whatever it is that's going to be thrown at you as a family law practitioner, and in my case, a judge. Well, for me, it was a no-brainer. If I want to show people that I'm serious about this position, I have to get in here and do some things that are maybe not status quo. And for me, that was one of those things. And I just sat for the exam recently a second time, and I'm far more confident this time. The first time I took it, I could see, hindsight is 2020, some of the mistakes that I made. One being that I was trying to study and prepare for that exam as well as taking the bench at the same time. And sometimes, you just have to trust yourself, give yourself grace, and just say, this is not the right time to do this.
Say that again, man. Because, the funny thing about that is because I actually looked at going to law school last year. Mm-hmm. And I toured all the law schools here locally. And, I had so much going on at the time. My mother was sick. And, mentally, I just couldn't really. It would have been crazy for me to try to be a caregiver and be in law school. That's crazy. But I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm Superman. I can do it. If anybody can do it, I can do it.
We always think like that, but we have to take a step back and be honest with ourselves. And we have to ask ourselves, what are your goals immediately? What are the things you're trying to achieve right now? In that moment, I wanted both. But what I realized after not being successful taking it the first time is that I'm not a failure because I didn't pass it. I wouldn't have been a failure if I didn't take it within sitting my first year. What would have been a definite failure is to continue the same cycle again when I took it the second time.
Is it a requirement for you to have that certification?
Not at all. This is, honestly, people ask me did I do it? They were like,
it's the equivalent like trying to get, I'm not trying to reduce anybody who has this, but like getting a PhD.
Pretty much.
Like pretty much being the top dog in what you're doing.
Or even like you said, even going to law school.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a requirement. This is just something that is very near and dear to me because I've always wanted to hold myself out as an expert in the field of family law. That's predominantly what I practice. That's all I know. And for me, it was very, very important to do that. And that's not the first. That'll probably be the first designation as an expert.
That's dope.
It won't be
That's
the last
dope.
because I'm going to keep going. And these are the things that go into me separating myself and putting together, like you came and you attended a workshop that I was hosting open to the public for the community.
I've never seen, and y'all, forgive me if I sound ignorant because I haven't seen that before. Then again, I hadn't been around that world before, but I've never heard of it. You know what I'm saying?
And that's another issue.
Yeah.
Our community lacks resources, and I think it's not, let me rephrase, it's not for the lack of. A lot of times we want to just stick to doing things that are within our comfort zone. Although I love being at the courthouse during business hours and people can come up there and I can host them. Well, I have no problem with hosting an event at, if they do a Sunday fun day. I have no problem doing that. I want to go where the people are.
Well, you're actually making yourself reachable. And what I noticed.
You have to.
You have to.
As an elected official. I don't like using the word politician. I know people say, Judge Vonda, you're a politician. I'm like, no, I'm just the girl from Oak Cliff that had a vision.
Yeah, you did.
Big difference.
Yeah. You had a vision and you got it, man. No, but it's good that you're saying that because I feel like, it's accountability season, specifically in the Black community. Like we have to look. One thing that I say about some elected officials, no, I actually say this about politicians, is they oftentimes want us to pretend like we don't see what we see. And pretend like we don't feel what we feel and pretend like we're not experiencing what we're experiencing. So then it's like, oh, well, just shut up. And, there's this guilt of, well, if you don't support this person, you're a supporter for this person.
Absolutely.
And it's like, no, every other group shows up to the table with a vote and donations. And they say specifically, what are you going to do for me? And, that's what they call quid pro quo. And we make that seem like it's really nasty. And quid pro quo is nasty when you're committing fraud.
Right.
Yeah. If I'm committing fraud and I'm doing something that says, well, I'll scratch your back if you scratch yours, and mine, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, but something illegal is going to come out of it, then that's a problem. And you need to be prosecuted for that. But if you're an elected official and you're coming to me asking me for my vote, my question is, what specifically are you going to do to earn my vote? Because if you're just down there shucking and jiving, and being a good old boy and a good old girl, then I don't need you down there because you're no different than the people that we label as white supremacists or the people that we look at in the system that is putting us down.
And it's interesting that you say that because I've already experienced that in almost 2 years of being on the bench.
I'll speak on it.
Well, prior to getting to the bench, I mean, you know my history. My predecessor, not only mistreatment of me personally, but just mistreatment of people in general. I don't like to see people mistreated. It grinds my gears.
You don't, and that's what I respect
not
about.
like
I don't like to interrupt you, but that's one thing about you that I fuck with you because of that. Like, you know, this is my podcast. I cuss on this motherfucker. But you know, I'm from the Grove. You from the Cliff. You know what I'm talking about. Like, if you treat people shitty, I tell my son all the time. You know, people are going to measure you based on how you treat people.
Absolutely.
And when he goes places with me, he's like, Dad, people be rolling out the red carpet for you. And I said, but do you realize I do the same thing for them when I go to restaurants? I talk to people like they're kings and queens.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm at Williams Chicken or if I'm at the Ritz-Carlton bar, I'm going to treat the person serving me, not that Williams Chicken is a lower grade, because it's some Williams Chicken sitting right over there. We're going to keep it a buck. But what I'm saying is we tend to feel like if a person is beneath us or they work a certain job, and I talk to people at Whataburger like they're the ambassador of the United States. I make them feel a certain kind of way because I don't know if they're going to get someone like me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's how you treat people, make people feel. But I also come to the defense. I put up my own money.
Absolutely.
And you've seen that. And you do it. I put my own money up to bail kids out of jail. I put my own money up to help people pay for their funerals. I put my own money up to help people who's lost their house and it's burned down. So you
have to care.
You have to care. So you can't fuck with your boy in that area. And that's why I always ask people, like, the critics that come in the comments talking that shit, my thing is, well, specifically tell me what you've done to create change in your community so that I can support you. And then it's always crickets.
Of course. And that's the thing. Some of your biggest, or some of my biggest people that, you know, that were critics were people that were not doing close to what I was doing, less than me, or doing nothing at all.
Nothing at all, typically.
And I mean, essentially, it doesn't even matter what level they're on in life, right? Because as I was saying, I've seen it even in the legal field.
True.
Because when I spoke my story and my truth about what happened to me from my predecessor, I got shunned by a lot of people. I'm not just going to say people in general.
Be specific.
I got shunned by a lot of black people.
Dive a little bit deeper.
I got shunned by Democrats.
Speak to their gender. I'm being petty now.
No, seriously.
Black
women, female,
really.
In Democrats, diehard Democrats. And it was and when I say that, I'm not talking about a lot of people in the community. The black women in the community, majority of them embraced me. They were like, I had no idea that happened to you. We support you. And that's how it should be. When you talk about, you know, black women sticking together, that's how it should look. It shouldn't be we only stick together when it's a race war. That's ridiculous. So you mean to tell me that because my predecessor was not a white male, that women that were involved in politics, the same route that I'm in now, did not come to my back end and did not support me? I mean, some people that were like prominent people that I have seen them speak up, go to bat for other people, they did not have my back. And it was so disheartening at first. It was very disheartening because for me, you could have easily been in my position. And for some of them, they were in my position. My predecessor treated them wrong, did all kind of things to them. But once you make it into where you want to be as a member of the judiciary, then all of a sudden,
said I got mine,
it doesn't
you get yours
matter
type shit
to you anymore. And that was, it's unfortunate because what happens is you're allowing somebody to not accept accountability. And because we do live in Dallas County, and you know, people run for office because, I mean, in particular in the judiciary, I'm a black female, I'll win. Well, what are you telling the generation of women, young black girls that are coming up behind us?
There's no accountability. You don't have to work for anything. And
right.
I made a comment.
You're playing gender politics.
You're playing gender identity politics. And I made a comment. I made a post the other day, and I said, you know, because I'm down at the courts, you know, at the criminal courts. Mm-hmm. I said, we need more black male judges. You know, that's not to knock anybody else. But as I go through the courts, I mean, we can probably count right now. We could probably name the black men that are down there, like, and it won't be a long list, right? there needs to be some type of balance with black men, or men in general.
I was just going to say men in general. Men in general, because what I have experienced personally since I've been on the bench with even my colleagues, there are 7 of us. There are 6 black women, 1 white female. The only one who has ever been my ally from the time I took the bench, from assisting me when I needed something. If I'm, hey, Judge, I'm kind of stuck on this. What are your thoughts? Do you have jury instructions? Is the white one. She's the only one that has been in my corner. My other 5 black female counterparts,
Ooh.
they have intentionally boxed me out. But it's interesting because at first I was thinking maybe it was because they really liked my predecessor. But none of them liked her. They didn't have a relationship with her. I think it was the mere fact that here I am coming into an organization and disrupting it. And by disrupting it, I'm holding you accountable, because since I've been there, I've called out things that I saw that were very problematic.
Well, our community in general and in part doesn't really like accountability when it comes to shit like that. And people are acting like they're, the first thing when you call somebody out or you hold them accountable, first thing they want to call you is a coon. And I explain to people, like, a coon is a very specific thing. A coon is a person who goes out of their way to work against black people's progress. That's
Correct.
it. Nothing more, nothing less.
Correct.
And they typically side with either the system of white supremacy or non-black people. That's it. That's a coon. A coon is not someone that holds you accountable. And everybody's always like, well, you owe Uncle Tom. And it's like, I can tell you didn't read the book. Because Uncle Tom was the person that was actually helping his people, and Sambo was the coon. And it's like, you're not even delivering your insults right.
Well, and a lot of them don't know how to, because typically we rely. Remember, I told you, millennials, we're that last generation.
Hey, we that generation that TV used to go off. Y'all remember? See, I remember when TV used to go off at 12 o'clock. They would have
and all the colors would come.
Remember the eagle used to fly by? You know what I'm saying? The colors would go green. Then at 5 o'clock in the morning, they come back on. Mm-hmm. That's how old we are. But we were that generation that used them AOL CDs to get online. Remember that 15 minutes? And it's like, now I literally have my entire life in my phone. Yeah. I can literally access anything I want to from my phone.
And that's the problem. That, what you just said, has become the problem, because since the influx of social media and the advancement in technology, it has taken us away from doing our research in a book. We have now become reliant on mainstream media and TikTok and Instagram as our source of media, not understanding that sometimes these things aren't. Sometimes they are educational, and they can still be part educational. But it's also a level of entertainment, because if you're looking at something from the palm of your hand, you're not going to watch a video that's telling you something you need to know in a book that doesn't have pictures and images that's going to entertain you.
It's condensed.
It is.
Yeah. And there might be some things that are factual, but then there's also some things that I think it was you.
Red herrings.
The red herrings. I think it was you that sent me like a newspaper clipping that showed like all the winners, and I was like, wait, that person didn't win their seat. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't know no better, if you just add, the barbecue spot, and you look at the newspaper, you're like, oh, okay, they won. Or you see that their signs are still up because they ain't picked them up yet. You assume they won, but the truth is, no, they didn't. And it's like, well, why are we even promoting this person or this entity or whatever it is? To people, I think it's because they know that we're not going to read. They know that the average person is not going to do their due diligence.
And that's dangerous, because being a judge, in my opinion, is the highest level that you can be on in a local race. It's the highest level. Like, you of course you have your state reps and your Congress people, but I'm talking about just the everyday within your community. You think about a judge, and to have a judge occupying a seat where that judge does not read, or that judge just does not follow the law, think about that. How would that make you feel if you entered into a courtroom and the only source of information that your judge took to educate themselves about your case was something that they saw on TikTok? That's scary.
That's very scary.
That's scary. We have to.
What's the qualifications of a judge? Do you have to practice law for a certain amount of time?
Yes. So when I ran, you only had to practice law for 4 years. But then that law literally changed right before my election was certified. So the certification means I had a primary election, but I didn't have a general opponent. So at that time, I can't remember if it was the Secretary of State, somebody with the state of Texas certified all of us who did not have general elections in September. So we were already clearly the winner for the race or whatnot. So
because they you didn't have a Republican running against you, so it was just a primary.
Just the primary.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they changed it right after September. I believe it went into effect January of 23. But it was being voted on at the time that my election was certified. So now you have to be a practicing attorney for 10 years. It doesn't matter what field that you're in. You do not have to pigeonhole yourself into one particular area. After 10 years of practicing law, you can just go run for judge. There is no other qualifications really besides that. I mean, you have small qualifications like you have to, whatever county that you're running for, you have to live in that county. And if you don't live in that county at the time, you have 2 years up until the day of the upcoming general election to do it.
People run for judge and don't live in the county?
I mean, I've heard about that. Yeah. I can't say that I have experienced that personally.
Because I've seen it with like city council where I've actually helped some city council people that were running at least move into areas so they could run.
I did something like that. Yeah. So
which is okay, which is perfectly fine. Yeah. Like, here's the thing: if you want to, like, I lived in Plano, Collin County, and then I moved out to like the Firewheel area, like Rowlett. You know, I lived in Rowlett for a while, but I actually brought my business back to Dallas specifically so I can help my community where I came from. You know what I'm saying? So when you see that you need to change something, you'll make a move. Like, I was living good.
This is my exact segue into what I'm getting ready to say is what you just touched on. When at the time that I decided to run for judge, I was living in Midlothian, which is Ellis County. Brand new house built from the ground up. Wasn't in there maybe a year. I came home. I came home to my husband. I said, "How much you like this house?" He said, "It's okay. I want to make some updates to the driveway, but we lived in the HOA at the time, and you couldn't do that." Go through them. So I said, "Well, we have to buy another house in Dallas County so I can run for judge because I got to unseat this bad person. I can't sit back and let them destroy this county. I refuse to do. As a person that is born and raised in Dallas County, I practice law in this county. My family lives here. My children live here. They were born here. I mean, my family is here.
You're rooted.
I am very much so rooted. How bad would that be if I were to sit back, my love for this county, and watch someone who is not even from here destroy it? I could not do that.
Dallas allows that to happen. Dallas has this thing where we let people from out of town come in and just kind of give them the keys to the city. And then when people from Dallas say, "Hey, something's not right about that," they wag their finger at us and tell us to shut up and sit down and get in line. I don't know what that's about.
I can say that wasn't my experience with wagging a finger and nobody told me not to do it. People were excited because when I actually talked about what my experience was with my predecessor.
I remember that.
When I actually talked about it.
That post took off like crazy.
Yeah, I made that post back in 2019.
That was before you even announced you were running.
Well before.
So I remember that because I was at my office I had an in-house attorney. Shout out to my dog. She's been talking noise to me online, Drea. But she was like, "Tim, come look at this." So it was her and her partner at the office. And they were like, "Yo, she's going in." They said, "Do you know her?" I was like, "No, I don't know her." I said, "I feel like we got a lot of friends in common." I looked you up. And so I read the post and I just started going through the comments. And then I started seeing people that I knew who were like, "Man, something like that happened to me in that same court." And I have a story too. I'm not going to share it here about, your experience or as far as my experience with the same person. But I just saw how, like, from the time you made it that morning to like the next day, like how many people had picked up on that post and how many times it had been shared. And what I loved about it, Vonda, I'm just gonna start calling you Vonda. I know you. She's Judge Vonda B, but this is Vonda. We talking. I loved how people rallied behind you, and I loved how people put their fears aside and said, fuck this shit. We cannot let this happen. And Mama Bailey and Papa Bailey, I know y'all watching this. I'm sorry, I'm cussing so much. This is what I do over here. I cuss a lot, all right? You know, my mama used to squint sometimes too. But I just saw how I really understood what grassroots was in that moment, because you were just a girl from Oak Cliff, minding your business, practicing law, doing your thing, being a mom, being a wife, taking care of your clients, and somebody had to F around and find out that you were not the one to mess with. And no one in the establishment thought you could win. They just knew. They
didn't. And you know, it's, and even about that, there were people that came to me from different organizations and told me that I was not going to unseat a 2-time incumbent. She's been there 88 years. You're not going to unseat her. That's going to be hard. And, you know, statistics show. I said, well, I'm going to tell you, like I told the person who told me I couldn't sit for the bar early in February because my GPA was too low. Statistics don't apply to Vonda Bailey. Because a stat is all it is. It's based on, you know, different factors. But it never really often considers outliers. That's what the problem is with statistics a lot of times, because you always have to consider those outliers. I've been an outlier my entire life.
I have literally been an outlier. I can talk to you about some stuff we've talked about in this podcast before, times where I should not have won.
Oh,
and it's like I feel like I be, and that's not the brag, but you know, it's that it factor.
Grit.
It's grit. Well, I always call it it.
Yeah.
But grit makes sense too. But I always say everyone knows what it is. You either got it or you don't.
That's
and when
it.
you see it, you know it. And when you have it, it's like can't nobody touch you. And it really relies on your confidence too. If you believe in yourself enough to go do stuff. And I just always knew that as long as I tried, I'd be all right. My uncle used to say nothing, you know, beats a failure but a trier, man.
That's
like
true.
Get out there and just give it. If you lose, you still win because now you know how to adjust. I was in the military.
That is absolutely
ready,
correct.
fire, aim. We always were taught ready, aim, fire, but in the military it's ready, fire, aim. So when you shoot, then you can adjust your sights. Okay, I'm hitting the target. I got four patches to the left. Okay, you off to the left. Go to the right a little bit. All right, now go up a little bit. Now I'm centered. You know what I'm saying? But I had to shoot that target 8 or 9 times to see where my sights need to be. And too often people are just too afraid to pull the trigger.
They are. And, you know, if I had adopted that same mindset, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you
Not at
today
all.
as a judge. But I knew better. First of all, if anybody knows anything about my parents, my daddy would tell you he never ran away from a fight. And Vonda Bailey, his daughter, is the exact same way. I do not run away from a fight. So if somebody tell me I can't do something or I won't be able to do something, I'm going to work 10 times as harder. And I have that confidence, because I know that the only person that can hold me back from achieving anything is myself. And when you allow negativity to enter the mind, it festers, and it goes from every different department in your mind, in your life that you've compartmentalized and think you got under control. I don't allow negativity to seep in. I always think positive. I always think, oh, I can do it. You know, people say
You're a natural optimist.
all the time. And people will say, well, my plan B, I said, I don't operate from plan Bs. I always have a plan A, because if think about it. Nothing about a plan A, the entire plan goes wrong. It's usually a concept or a step that goes wrong. You pivot and you adjust.
Say that
And you
again.
still are on plan A. There is no such thing as a plan
B is literally throwing away everything you've done and starting over, and you have to adjust. It's the
Plan B is
concept of
giving
evolution.
Plan B is giving yourself permission to fail. And I don't believe in that. I don't adopt failure. So those people that told me, came to me in my face and were
You ain't
saying
got no
these
chance.
things to me, the reason why I was so comical, because they didn't know, I just bought a new house, built from the ground up. You know how expensive houses are.
Oh, I do.
Houses are expensive. And I went and bought another house in the county, calculated it to make sure that the timing was at least 2 years, really over 2 years. It was 2 years and 3 months to be exact, from being able to be qualified as a resident of Dallas County.
I personally, I know you have your documentary out there. I watched it. I've shared it with people, but I really think you need to write like a book, man, because
It's in the works.
the way you meticulously navigated that, it was like it was like poetry in motion. It was like going to a symphony, watching you just. Oh, y'all thought that was it? Let me peel back this next layer.
And the
got
reason
something
I
else
did
for
it
you.
like that, it was very important for me to do it like that. I'm naturally a planner and a brain. I think a lot. And I write down a lot, and I'm very meticulous. Every move I make means something. And what I, tell people, I give people this little tidbit. If I'm quiet, you need to be worried.
Man.
If I'm talking, then
good.
Vonda good. But if I'm quiet, you don't really see me too much. Yeah, we see her, but we don't see her, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking
working on
about something.
something.
I'm
Yeah,
working
yeah.
on something. So definitely a book is in the make. A couple of books actually it's definitely in the making. And I was very, very intentional about every way that I ran my campaign, because for me, I knew that somebody was going to come behind me.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what their race was, no matter what their gender was, somebody was going to come behind me and be inspired about what I did. And what I wanted to do was not only to show them, first of all, an incumbent can be beat.
Absolutely.
Preparation will beat them, because a lot of them aren't prepared. They do what we talked about in the beginning, the same old thing.
Yeah.
And just want to get back out here right before it's time to vote and say, hey, vote for me.
Vote for me. Come on to this catfish fish fry real quick.
Right.
And
but
then
that doesn't work. You have to earn people's vote.
hold on real quick, Vonda. We organic over here. Let me pull this down just a little bit so the people can see Vonda.
Okay.
There we go. There we go. We ain't gonna edit that out. We too real over here. But no, you're right, because typically you see me, I take my Facebook breaks. And every time I pop back on Facebook, I'm doing something. I've been out for a while. I came back. Now I have the lobby going on. But you got to watch a person that disappear and get quiet on you, because it's like you don't know what they working on, and you can't control people. I even tell my son, some of the best way to really, you have an issue with somebody or something's going on, the best thing to say to them is absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. Because mentally, they're going to drive themselves crazy wondering what you're doing.
What you're thinking.
And then eventually, they're going to tell you everything you need to know.
Always.
I was talking to a good friend yesterday who's having an issue with another family member. And the family member was talking some shit about her behind her back. And, it got back to her because she was talking shit about her back to somebody that knew her. But she didn't know they knew her.
Oh, that's
And
a
so-
whole, that's a whole nother segment right there.
So the family member was talking that shit behind her back, and this person just didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. But the family member knew she knew. And it was driving her crazy. She was calling around, talking to everybody. Hey, have you heard from such and such? Even, just even reached out to me as somebody that's connected to this person. I'm just like, man, you need to reach out to them directly. That ain't none of my business. Even though I knew what the deal was. Yeah, you kind of scared right now because you don't know what all this person knows. And eventually they had a conversation, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because that ain't my business to say. But eventually in the conversation, the family member had to just start having diarrhea of the mouth and just start telling on themselves. So even the shit that this person didn't know, they just start saying everything. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's what wisdom will teach you. Wisdom will teach you that you don't have to always respond to people. Sometimes you need to just fall back and watch how people move, calculate how you're going to respond, and then attack.
That's exactly what I did. And that's why my campaign was so successful. I beat a 2-time sitting incumbent by 19,940 votes.
That's crazy.
That's unheard
Not
of.
in Dallas County where people don't even come out and vote in the midterms, but that's another thing for another
I had
day.
no political appearance before that.
Yeah.
I hadn't ran for city council. I wasn't just out there in the political
And
scene
you
like
didn't
that.
have the machine behind you either. When I say that, I just mean one thing I learned by helping people with their campaigns, one of my friends ran for a position, and he was 100%, in my opinion, the better candidate. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't the incumbent. And so everyone loved him. But they said we just can't go against the incumbent. It's just standing rules. That's not how we get down in this party. And he's like, come on, And I feel like it left a bad taste in his mouth because he had done so much for the community. He was clearly the person that would have been out front, but nobody was supporting him because he wasn't the incumbent.
Oh, yeah. In the beginning, I had a lot of supporters, obviously. I had a ton of them. But there were some people, especially in the family law arena, because every area of law has their own bar. So in the family law bar, there were people that intentionally held out because they knew how my predecessor was, and they didn't want to get on their bad side because they had cases
Let's
out of that
talk
court.
about that, because that's a
It was
form of
bad.
intimidation, Vonda. And
It is.
And listen,
And
I don't know your predecessor personally. I've only had one encounter with them.
I don't even know him personally.
Yeah, I don't know them personally. It was an interesting encounter. If she watches this and wants to talk about it, we can have a conversation about it. But several people witnessed it, but I wouldn't talk about it here for the sake of I ain't trying to start no shit with you, even though I don't give a fuck. But it's funny that you said that, because a lot of people won't speak up for fear. And when I talk to some of my friends, specifically my black male friends, they have a lot to say about a lot of the judges in the criminal court system, and even some of the judges in the civil court system, but they will never say it out loud. And many of them like support me because I don't give a damn. Mm-hmm. And many of them give me a lot of, I don't want to say talking points, but they bring me a lot of factual evidence on certain things that are happening that a lot of attorneys, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, just are afraid to speak about, because they understand in a city like Dallas, where it's a blue city and it's a lot of black people here. And once you vote for something, it's hard to run against somebody black that's in office. Let's call it what it is. And they just don't want to mess up their career. They don't want to get, railroaded, kind of like you did. Or like you were tried through being railroaded by the person that unseated you. And, I just remember all the things you went through, some of the complaints that were made about you, like a lot of erroneous stuff that was happening that wasn't fair to you, but you had to answer and respond to that stuff because it was impacting your professional integrity.
Absolutely. And it's a time of my life that, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Yeah, you've said that a lot of times.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish what my predecessor put me through on my worst enemy. And what I will say from that experience, though, is that I didn't realize, in speaking my truth and what happened to me and holding them accountable for what they did. Because as an elected official, everybody don't know the things that go on behind closed doors. They don't know.
And they hold people to such a high regard, and they're people just like me and you. And that's not to reduce anything about us, but we're human.
It's true.
We get up, we got to brush our teeth every morning.
Got to do the same thing.
We got to do the same thing.
I mean, we have to do these things. And so it's you're at a disadvantage, because on one hand, you don't want to make the profession look bad, right? But on the other hand, as a human, you're dealing with something mentally. People are shunning you, and they have no reason why they're doing it besides the fact that you don't need to talk about this because you make the profession look bad. But what happens to this accountability? And so
that shit was impacting you as a woman during your pregnancy.
During my pregnancy,
and a lot of people don't understand that.
I almost lost my child behind that.
You literally almost lost your child behind it. And I don't think people get that. And I met your daughter, the fastest child in the world, y'all. When I met her daughter, shit was so funny, dog. We went out to go eat. We went to go eat. Vonda was in a boot. I don't know how Vonda broke her foot. She had a stress fracture, maybe wearing heels, whatever. Her daughter was ready, man. Every chance her daughter got, she just took off running. It was the funniest thing. And that little girl could run. Yeah. And now I got a little girl at the house that do the same
Now she's
thing.
running on ice skates.
Now, my daughter, she'll hit that corner with that arm like that. When she turned that corner, it's on. Like, you ain't going to catch her. But no, I remember, you speaking about that. And as a woman, you guys have a lot to balance just in your bodies together.
Absolutely.
And then during a pregnancy, anything can set you off. Anything can put you in the hospital. Anything can cause your hormones to change, your water to break, the baby to beat. That impacts that baby. Yeah. So it was super personal for you.
It was. And, the unfortunate part, when I talked about some of these women, black women in the profession that didn't want to have anything to say, or, if they did have something to say, it was negative, like I shouldn't have done that or whatnot. Remind me of the time that you almost lost a child because somebody came for how you feed your family. Until you have been in that position, you cannot tell me how I can feel about it. You cannot tell me when I can stop talking about it either. I talk about it till I'm blue in the face. As long as what I'm doing is truthful.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, because what I did in sharing my story, what I didn't realize, that post you were talking about, all those comments, I saved lives under that post.
You did.
I saved people's lives because there were people that had cases out of that court that were on the verge of mental breakdowns. Yeah. They were on the verge of losing friends, family, their houses, their livelihood, because of some of the things that was going on with my predecessor. So to tell somebody
to shut up,
essentially, because of what they experienced, it's not fair. But it's interesting because if you do a search on TikTok and mental health with women, you have all these things popping up, encouraging women about different things that they're dealing with, telling their story. You had a Me Too movement, all these different movements. But when it came down to me as a judicial candidate, I was just supposed to shut up and turn the blind eye.
Yeah, what are you complaining for? You're making good money. You have a good family. Just shut up.
And all of that. But at the end of the day, guess what? I'm still going to talk because I care and I'm more compassionate about the people that come after me.
Yeah,
I care and I'm more compassionate about the people that are looking at me now that don't have my platform, that do not have the influence or the money to make things happen the way that I can. Those are the people I advocate for.
Man, that's what I respect about you the most. I want to shift gears a little bit. So how does it work from the standpoint of I just found this out recently that even after, I think I was down at the DA's office, a friend of mine is what you call what do you call those judges that write bail over the weekend?
Magistrate.
A magistrate. And so I didn't realize that you didn't have to be an elected official to actually sit on a bench.
Oh, yeah.
And that there was opportunities for people to actually sit on benches or to perform duties as a judge or in the capacity of a judge that actually impacts people long term. Does that happen at your court too?
We have visiting judges.
Can you break that down? Because I have no clue what that means. I've never even heard of it. I've never heard of a visiting judge.
I love educating. So whenever you're the elected judge, whenever you're unavailable, you can do you can request a visiting judge. And what that is, we go through our administrative judge. Our administrative judge oversees so many different regions throughout Texas. They're broken up in regions. So
are they elected?
They're not elected. They're appointed. These are appointed positions in Texas.
How do you get appointed for that?
Now, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm assuming it may have something to do with the governor or something. Okay. I'm not exactly sure how the administrative judges actually get their appointment.
Okay.
But I feel safe saying it has something to do with a government.
Kind of like the Supreme Court is appointed by the president. There's something with our government. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I'm assuming if it's safe to assume that these people probably have experience being judges and they.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The visiting judges have experience. You have to have at least 8 years experience in any area of law, because you can be a visiting judge in what's called a full jurisdictional court. So in Dallas County, we have criminal courts, probate courts, civil courts, family courts. In some other counties, they don't have different courts. Their courts are full jurisdictional. So one judge in a day can hear a criminal case, a family case,
really?
A probate case. Yes.
They don't separate? I thought they always separated.
No.
Because, we got, 3 different court buildings here and not
Dallas
even talking about the municipal, area.
Yeah, Dallas is a larger city, just like Harris County is, but not every single county in Dallas County
That's interesting.
is like that. So when you get a visiting judge, these judges can be requested to sit anywhere. So if, let's say, a judge in Collin County is unavailable, it's a pool of visiting judges that you can pull from. This particular visiting judge may have only had experience in a family court, but they're sitting on a full jurisdictional docket, Okay. So that's essentially what a visiting judge is. They step into the role of an elected judge, a district judge, when that district judge is unavailable. And it's however long they're going to be absent. So if it's a day that you need a visiting judge, you can get them for a day. You can get them for a week-long jury trial.
Is there a timeline on how long they can stay?
It just depends on the appointment. So if the district judge is going to be absent from the bench an extended period of time, the administrative judge does an order that is posted outside of the courtroom door to put the public on notice that this is an order with this particular judge. They give the visiting judge's name and the extent of their
Capacity.
Not capacity. They're how long they'll be sitting.
Okay.
So if it's a week, it'll be a week. If it's 6 months, it'll be 6 months.
So like, do y'all have that? They have that like going on in your courts. You have that at your court too.
Yeah, I typically don't use visiting judges, and I will tell you the rationale. I'm very, very organized in my court. When people come to my court and we have hearings, you're getting a ruling out, if not the same day, within a 48-hour period.
Really?
And that is very unheard of. That is very unique. And I'm really big on that because I practice law. And I hated when a judge would sit on my case forever. Right. Give me a ruling. Give me a ruling. So that's the reason why I am so prepared. Like before people come in my court, I'm very familiar with their case. I can probably recite to you some of the things that I saw in your petition or didn't see in your petition, and that all goes into preparedness. So I give people finality within, at least I try not to do more than a 48-hour window. Obviously, I have some cases that require me to think a little longer, review some more things, especially CPS cases, but nothing longer than like a week or something like that. And because I have gotten people that appear in front of me somewhat of predictability. I think that's very important for a judge. You want to be able to not necessarily say how a judge will rule in a specific case, but you want to set your client's expectation. This judge is always prepared. This judge is going to have us a ruling out pretty fairly. Fairly quickly. So, this prepares your client so they know what to expect. So with a visiting judge, I can't promise to deliver that.
You don't
same
have any
thing.
say so on that. Like this is I've literally never heard this concept. So
I cannot tell a judge that is sitting for me, get this ruling out within 48 hours. I can't tell them that.
Do you have can you choose who sits in your office? Like this is I ain't never heard this shit.
You can say who you don't want sitting, but if you need someone sitting, let's say a week, and the only person that's available to sit for a whole week is this person, I mean, you either go along with them or you appear yourself. So I personally do not use visiting judges. And if I were ever in a position where I needed to use one, I would only pick from a pool of maybe 3.
So how do y'all choose the dang like that doesn't seem so man, this is crazy. So I have to vote you in, right?
Yes.
You have to go through an entire process.
Absolutely.
But once you get in office, or there's a process for a visiting judge who doesn't have to go through that same process, and it can essentially be anybody.
It can be anybody that meets the minimum
the minimum requirements. So then, how do they choose them? Like, do you say, hey, I want this person or that person? Like, is there a list? You say it's 7 or 8 judges where you come from, or in your court. Like, do y'all like take a vote? Is it like how do y'all choose who's going to fill in for y'all?
That's actually a good question. So in our court, we have protective orders. It's family court. So of course we have protective orders. Protective orders are orders that are meant to just do what they say. Protect this person or this group of people. You can also do protective orders on property to keep someone from destroying it in a divorce or something like that. So because we do protective orders and there are so many of them, we have an actual court that we send, all 7 family courts, we send all of our protective orders to what's called the Protective Order Court, which is housed over in the Frank Crowley Courts building. We get to select who those judges are in Protective Order Court. So
So they're not elected officials?
No, they can't be elected officials.
But Protective Order Court is just saying like, hey, I need a restraining order, or hey, I need.
A protective order is.
So let's peel back the layers of that. So explain to me what a protective order is.
A protective order is you asking for the protection of a person, persons, or even property in some cases. But when you're talking about persons, when you think about domestic violence,
like a restraining order.
Well, it's different from a restraining order.
Really?
Protective order has more meat on it than a restraining order. So a protective order.
Because I've never thought restraining orders worked. That's just in my opinion. That's just a cat from Pleasant Grove. Like, I would see. I think I was watching something on a video where like The lady came to court with her boyfriend and had a restraining order on her.
And people do that. That is a thing. We definitely don't encourage people to do that because that hurts the defense of a protective order.
Or like the
Because what
hood
you're
cats, like I don't give a damn about that law. That thing. I'm gonna come over and see my kid, whatever it is. So I've always just kind of thought that it didn't mean anything because of a person who wants to get to you, they'll get to you. But can you explain the difference?
So a protective order. The most common way in family court that you will see a protective order come up is when someone is in a marriage, domestic violence has occurred. They're in a dating relationship, domestic violence has occurred. You don't even have to be in a relationship actually for a protective order. If you and a person are roommates and domestic violence occurs, you can request a protective order, and a protective order doesn't only have to come out of family court. You have the JP courts. They issue emergency protective orders, which they all have their expirations. In family court, typically, protective orders, you'll see them being entered, a final protective order, 2 years. Some can be longer than 2 years. And it protects the person. So the respondent, the person who the protective order is against, there is law enforcement protection that is attached to it. So the violation of a protective order will not only potentially extend the duration of a protective order that's currently in place, you can go to jail for it. You can get another protective order put on top of it. Really? You can also get, another protective order. You can get it's a felony, and you can get another offense. You can get an offense related to the violation of a protective order.
So if you violate, in some cases, a protective order, you can actually get a felony for that, depending on the severity of it?
Oh, yeah, depending on what you do.
This is like all new to me. I've never even heard of protective orders. Yeah. I just heard of restraining orders. And
a restraining order, typically you hear those referred to as TROs.
Okay.
It stands for a temporary restraining order. So you're trying to temporarily at some point stop something from continuing to happen that is irreparable. Like if you do not stop this now, it's going to continue to fester.
Okay.
So a temporary restraining order, the best way to look at it is a Band-Aid. It's just a Band-Aid for whatever that next step is going to be. However, if the police show up, if you have a temporary restraining order in place, depending on what it's for, because it can also be for persons and it can also be for property. Yeah. If law enforcement show up, and let's say you've already left, they're not going to come and arrest you. Okay. A protective order, on the other hand, has that meat. You can actually get arrested on site for violating a protective order, and depending on how you did it, because some people violate them worse than others.
Is that like the city police or county police or anybody?
It can be any law enforcement official. It can be the city.
It's a warrant.
Yeah. Well, it can turn into a warrant.
Okay.
It can turn into a warrant.
I'm asking these questions because I don't know. One thing that we do on this show is we try to educate you all about certain. We have a good time and we talk our shit, but there's a lot of stuff that y'all need to know about because I'd never even heard of a protective order. So like if a person needs to get one, like how do they get one?
So it's two ways you can get a protective order. For family court, for what I do, the only way you can get a protective order out of a family court is if you have a family court case pending. So if you have a suit affecting a parent-child relationship, which those are your typical possession and access, I want primary custody, I want the child to live with me primarily, or a child support situation, a divorce, you'll see somebody can apply for a protective order that way through family court. Well, you can also see them in the criminal district court. So the district attorney's office, they have a protective order division where if you would like to request a protective order, you are what's called the applicant. Remember, I told you the other person that the protective order would be against is the respondent. You can go through the DA's office. You can also go to the JP courts. Yeah. They have emergency protective orders, but the duration of those are a lot smaller.
And then you can file your case or do what you need to do to kind of get it extended.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you get a protective orders are extremely powerful. If you get one in JP court, and let's say that it expires at that 60th day, right? Yeah. So at that 60th day, before that 60th day, there's a marriage, there's no divorce pending. You go, you get an emergency protective order. You can take that same emergency protective order from the JP level, file your divorce, put them on notice of that emergency protective order, and also file an application for a protective order in family court that will extend that 60 days. So you can apply in family court as a part of your divorce. A good attorney could help you with that. I mean, anybody well versed in family court but can help. But you definitely, if you're a family law attorney that does not do protective orders, it's best to pass that off to an attorney who does, because it's easy to mess those up because those applications are very specific. And then you don't only have protective orders for a person's body, like I said, property. If a protective order, if the two of you live together in a marriage or in a dating relationship that's gone sour, y'all in there shacking up, and you want to kick them out, there are certain things you got to follow to kick them out. Yeah, I know that as a real estate broker, like, with the evictions and having properties and, tenants, like you can't just kick a tenant out. You know what I'm saying? You have to go through a whole process. You have to give them notice. You have to set a court date, go to court. The court has to look at it and see if it's valid, and then after they see if it's valid, then they can make a ruling. Then they still have so much time. The constable has to come. It's a mess. It can be if you don't do it right. And if you mess it up, if your client is someone who needs a protective order in desperate need and they're living with the abuser and you file the application and it doesn't contain a kick out order, like the language to actually get them kicked out of the house, and the mistake is made and only a protective order is issued, but they're still in the house together, that's problematic. It's best to have an attorney do that part of it for you. Although you can do it by yourself. I'm not saying people, if you can't afford an attorney, you better call legal aid. But you definitely want to have an attorney help you through that. An attorney who understands that process.
I think it's important. My cousin just got in a really bad accident, and the first thing I told him is, man, you need to call my attorney. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't be pretending like we know how to get this stuff done on our own. You got to call an attorney. So hypothetically, my attorney could be a protective order judge. Or do you have to be a judge for so long before?
And that's actually a good question, because there are attorneys that sit as JP judges. Right. So in theory,
I know you don't have to have a law degree to be a JP judge.
No,
right?
You don't.
I actually thought about running for JP.
You can do it.
You know what? One of my frat brothers ran, and he won. I actually helped him on his campaign. He's doing an amazing job, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know what anybody else thinks about him. I don't care. But somebody in my district was like, Tim, you should run for justice of the peace. I'm like, why would I want to do that? They said, man, it's actually a nice little thing to have.
All you have to do is live in the precinct.
All you got to do is live in the precinct, right? No, that's interesting though, because Vonda, being a cynical person that I am, like, I would want to know who them people are that's in the position to even do that, because protective order seems like it's really important.
And they're
serious. If you have a track record, I want to know what your track record is in policy or even in law, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're literally being placed in a position to ultimately control someone's life or death in some situations. Like,
absolutely, it's serious. Protective orders are extremely serious. Those are cases where, and it's a good thing that they're housed actually over in the criminal courts, because some people are incarcerated coming to court depending on the severity of the situation. Some people cannot be in the courtroom together without law enforcement surrounded by them because of the severity of it. So protective orders, they are extremely serious, have serious consequences, and they also have serious consequences if they are not done properly. So it's very, very serious. And as a judge, that every now and then, if somebody has an emergency protective order, I have to hear that. I have my listening ears on for every case, but especially for that one, I'm not just listening. I'm paying attention to body language. I'm paying attention to responses. Like when you're giving a response, are you looking at the other person? Are you looking around?
Yeah. Man, I ain't hit her, judge, did I? You know what I'm saying? But you know what's so
intimidation
and it's not to make
thing.
a light of that, because domestic violence ain't nothing to fuck around with, y'all. So don't be that guy. I go around for something and they take this clip, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which I don't give a damn, because y'all gonna do it anyway. But I always think about one of the clips that I really, really, really hate. that everyone took and ran with was that clip where that guy was like, if you think I'm here to play around, God damn it, I'm not. The dude with the
Oh yeah.
But the story was like he killed like his baby mama or something, and the kids saw it, and he was like representing himself, and he was talking to the kids. You know, it's like that is just imagine seeing your mother or whoever get killed, and the person that killed her is representing himself, and he's in the court intimidating you. Like, that's crazy. I know we kind of went on a loophole there, but so you gotta be really careful with who's in a position to make decisions for you, specifically if you don't know their background or you don't know their stuff.
I absolutely think so. Just like being in this elected position, you should want to know who I am.
How often do y'all how long does that particular person sit?
As a visiting judge?
Yeah.
So they
have
sit
a tenure?
typically at a week at a time. It's a 2-year appointment.
That's what I meant to say. I'm sorry. So the appointment, like, and I'm nosy. Like, how much to pay for that?
I believe it's $600 every time they sit.
Okay, so they get a little bag. I mean, that's decent. They can go to Bloomingdale's and go get some Jordans. Little cash money, taking over. That's what's up. That's interesting. Like, that's. What are your thoughts about the whole process? And as far as like do you feel confident in the process that y'all have at your location?
No.
Why not?
Because, well, for one, just based on what we talked about, I just walked you all through the serious nature of a protective order, the duration. If something is in place for 2 years, that's telling you how serious it is. Or if it can be extended, some people have protective orders on them for a lifetime. So that just,
really?
Yes. That's the thing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All this shit is new to me.
You can have there are people that are walking around that have protective orders on them or against them indefinitely. There are people that went to prison that still have protective orders against them, and the person that they committed the offense against can keep renewing that protective order, and you get, even if it expires, you can apply to get it again for so much time, even after they get released. Yeah. That's the serious nature of it. And I don't think, and for my colleagues currently, the way that we do it, I don't think it really takes that into consideration. I think it plays more of a political role, which I don't think with something like that, as serious as it is, it shouldn't be a political move in terms of who you want your visiting judges to be. Right. Those judges, I want those judges to be very well versed, not necessarily in family law. I want them to be very well versed in protective orders. I want them to pay attention to the litigants that are in front of them, because not everybody that gets a protective order brought against them is a valid protective order. Right.
So that would be my concern as a man specifically, because I advocate for men, specifically black men. And, I've seen times, and I don't want to be too extreme, y'all, because I hate when people do it to me, but I've seen times when people use the law against men to damage them, if that makes any sense. They won't, the judge or whoever's looking at that case won't read into everything that's going on. And then you got somebody who they're getting thrown in jail or something's happening where I know someone personally who had a situation where his now wife, I got so many jokes about that, but I'm gonna keep it kosher. I'll tell you off. But his now wife essentially filed like a restraining order against him at one point in the game, or called the police on him because he may or may not have caught her cheating while they were dating. And because of that, he couldn't get a job at police departments. And he was extremely qualified. And every police department he went to told him no. And so I guess here in the Metroplex, Dallas does a lot of the background checks. Like, they do the polygraph and stuff like that. So he was having to go back to the same guy. Mm-hmm. And he said he finally applied for, maybe it was Garland. Let's just use Garland in this example, because I think it's Dallas and then Irving and then Garland are the largest cities in the county. Am I right? Is that right?
It sounds right.
Irving is the second largest, and I believe it's Garland.
For sure.
And a dude pulled him to the side and was like, he said, the dude called him, or he found out he didn't get the job. And he said he called the guy and was like, man, I've applied for like 8 jobs, man. Like, can you just tell me what it is that caused me to not get this job? And he said that you weren't truthful on your application. He was like, what did I lie about? He said, you lied about having, any restraining orders or whatever it was, like any pending litigation or past litigation that referred to domestic violence. He was like, I don't. He said, what are you talking about? apparently the guy said, well, this person called the police on you and said that you did this back in the days, and it happened in a big city, or Dallas. I'll just say Dallas. I ain't trying to shit on DPD. And the detective reached out to you, and they could never even touch you, and the case just kind of went cold. But it's still showing that you have this. And so it was never resolved. And he said, you are the only person, I've applied for all these, and you're the only person that's ever told me. He applied for the state troopers. He just couldn't figure out why. And so I think it's interesting for people to know that sometimes people do weaponize law enforcement, and that if you get put in a position where it is being weaponized, and it's not an everyday thing, but when it happens, you need to be able to have someone that's sitting up there that can differentiate, through wisdom and through just reading, that, hey, something isn't right here. I mean, your thoughts on that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to have that, and we cannot insert any personal feelings or even any previous experiences that we had, to say, oh, okay, I know he's lying or she's telling the truth, or that she's lying and he's telling the truth based on what I went through. That's not what that's for. And when you put people, in my opinion, in those positions that have a track record of having that type of demeanor in a visiting judge position in a protective order court, that becomes scary. And so to your original question about how I feel about my process, I don't like it, because my predecessor that I beat out, the one that did all of those egregious things to me, did egregious things to not only litigants. I mean, line up 10 people and ask each of them any experience they had with her. I can assure you at least 6 of them can give you horror stories. Why would in addition to that, lacks integrity, why would my counterparts, 5 other black women, why would you be interested in allowing that person to, one, represent you? Because these cases are not just cases that just come from nowhere. They're assigned to our courts and disseminated over to the protective order courts. So whoever you get as a visiting judge is an extension of you. It's a representation of you. Why would you want that person representing you? And furthermore, why, out of all the qualified judges that we have to sit over there to choose from, would you even consider someone with a lack of empathy, a lack of qualification? I mean, 8 years, yes, but having years experience is not what literally makes you qualified per se. You got to have integrity.
I'm a little slow sometimes. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
protective order court. Our process. We choose.
You said, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be slow, y'all. So you're saying that the person that you beat out.
The person I beat out 2 years ago.
2 years ago. The person that nobody in your court cares for, initially.
Oh, yeah.
They approved this person to be a protective order?
They approved her to go on the list amongst other members of the judiciary to sit as visiting judges.
Get the fuck out of here.
I'm so serious.
No, you gotta be fucking shitting
it
me.
ain't. You know what? Because
I'm not trying to listen. I'm just gonna keep it. At this point in the game, I'm gonna keep it a buck, because
I wish I could.
I know one of the judges in your. I know one of the judges in there who works with you, and I believe they ran against that person too. I actually helped them make videos against that person. I still have the videos in my phone to this day, and I can remember like some of the conversations that we had. So I know that person's got your back at least, right?
The only person who has my back, like I said earlier in this podcast.
Oh, please don't tell me that. Please don't tell me that.
The only white.
Oh, don't tell me that, dog. Judge. Don't tell me that, dog. That bothers me.
And it makes you wonder.
That bothers me because, damn, that's fucked up.
It makes you wonder why. I give you a prime example.
What you doing to these people down there, Vonda? That bothers me because I remember specifically helping someone in that court with their campaign videos, and I remember I remember how much they loathe the person that you're talking about. Just some of the stories they would tell me about this person, about the nastiness they had to deal with. I think that the theme of our videos was judicial temperament. Mm-hmm. And I just remember that. And I remember just really, really getting behind this person. Like, you're going to be all right. You're going to win. I think she got defeated, but then she eventually got another seat. So I would think that person would be like the first person that would support you because that person experienced what they experienced, and you're telling me that they not even supporting you. And I'm not gonna say any fucking names because they'll watch it and people will pick it up, but that bothers me a little bit because that bothers me a lot actually.
Well, and this is not the first go around. Like I've been on the bench almost 2 years. When I first got on the bench, my predecessor was already on the list to choose from, and she was selected from a couple of the judges that were still there at the time that got reelected.
Right.
So when I came in and I made the suggestion of removing her, like all 7 of us get together and create a list we want.
Right.
To remove her because she's cancerous and quite frankly a menace to the judiciary.
Right.
Anyone who goes around race baiting, knowing the climate of race tensions right now, just with this last presidential election,
it's kind of fucked up right now.
If you got somebody intentionally going around race baiting at the polls to pander the black vote, that's scary. That's scary.
That bothers me, Vonda. That bothers me a lot because
I'm telling you,
because that where does integrity come in? Like, at what point in the game do we exercise integrity? At what point in the game do we as black people say, "Fuck this shit. You wrong. Don't do that. I'm not gonna support you. I'm not." And it's not about a person not being able to have a job, because I think that every man and woman, regardless of your color, race, gender, whatever, should be able to earn an income. But
wait a minute, and I'm going to stop you right there because what I don't want people to do is look at, because I think this is what's going on.
Make people make it seem like you bitter and shit.
No, which I don't care about that. Anybody that knows me know better than that.
Right.
But I'm big on accountability. This being a judge is not an ordinary job. We're not talking about something where you work in corporate America and you're going from an administrative assistant to a CFO or a COO or something like that. You're getting pulled up like that. We're not talking about something like that. Right. We're not talking about even someone who works in retail and they're going from inventory in the back to the cashier or even McDonald's, from the fries to the front. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a judge. If you have a track record as a judge of doing things that disgrace the judiciary, there is no reason you should ever be considered to sit in a position that is such high regard with integrity. Regardless if you were retired, you did it for 8 years, it doesn't matter. There are judges to this day that have gotten unseated that did not have the best judicial temperament, did not do a lot of the things they were supposed to do, and you do not see them getting appointed. You know why? Because the judges in those positions are saying no. They're holding them accountable. We can't allow you to get back in here and do what you did, because you know why? You make all of us. You make us all look bad.
That bothers me, Vonda. That really bothers me, man. That bothers me, man.
That's not how my colleagues think.
That bothers me.
Like I said, it's 5 black women that thought that this was okay last year. It was so bad to the point to where I was going to pull my cases back. And you don't know this, obviously, because you didn't even really know what protective order. I had no clue what
none of this shit was.
So if I were to pull my cases back, it was threatening the operation of the protective order court itself, because it's run based on the 7 of us collectively sending our cases over there. So if I'm pulling mine back, we have a problem here, because we got to work out the logistics of getting somebody out of jail over here. You got to implement
the sheriff's department. It's a lot of moving parts. It's like playing Jenga. You pull one thing, it causes everything to fall. So then in that case, I got to ask now, can you do that now still? Can you use that as a tool to protest?
Absolutely.
Are you going to? If your predecessor, gets in that position?
More than likely, yes. Because you all mean that much to me.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
I can't do that.
That's crazy.
In good conscience. Yes, I could turn a blind eye, right?
Right.
I could do what everybody else says and just shut up and don't worry about it. Just let her work. She just, like one of them told me, just let her work. She don't have nothing. Just let her get these 2 years. She not gonna get her vesting. Holding my hand, telling me just let this happen.
That's crazy,
I could do
man.
that. And you know what, Tim? If I were to do that, I wouldn't have any problems on the bench. If I were to turn the blind eye to the things that I see and I witness and I call out, if I were to turn the blind eye to those things, I would just fly under the radar like everybody else.
That's
Nobody
crazy,
accepts
Vonda. I'm
accountability.
sorry, man. That's
but
crazy,
I
dog.
can't do that.
That's crazy.
I'm not wired like that.
That's crazy.
In
Like,
good conscience, I cannot allow a bad judge to sit on such an important
I think what bothers me the most is that I have a relationship with some judges, and it bothers me that the person that I don't know personally, but I assisted, and I know I thought I knew who they were, and I thought I knew what they stood for, that person would even allow or vote or recommend someone to come in. Like,
or
that's
not even those things.
I'm gonna have a conversation with. I ain't gonna call them because I don't know them like that. You know what I'm saying? But if I bump into them face to face, I'm definitely gonna have a conversation. Be like, yo, what the fuck? Because people are counting on you to do the right thing, and you always talked about how important it was to have somebody in there who would look out for you. And this is somebody I respect. I ain't got no issue with the person. I've never had any beef with them. I looked up to them. I love the fact that this person's a family person. They love their kids. We're friends on social media. I'm actually friends on social media with your predecessors. And, they added me, so I accepted. You know what I'm saying? Because me, I don't throw stones and hide my hands. So yeah, if you want to come to the source, just come to the source. I want you to. Matter of fact, I invite you to come, but. That's crazy to me, man. That's crazy to me that somebody specifically that has been impacted by the actions of this person would allow them to come and essentially do work for them. And it's like, it makes me wonder who behind the scenes is saying, hey, just get over it. Because that's what it sounds like.
And that's essentially how I feel. Like when I brought it up before, I was ignored. I sent emails about it, sent concerns, tried to bring it up in the judges' meeting. Got verbally attacked in the judges' meeting when I tried to bring it up. I
like to be a fly on the wall in that meeting because I know if you know Vonda like we know Vonda, you can't whoop her ass. You know what I'm saying? So you might as well get your shit straight and come correct. Because the one thing about Vonda, you can't whoop her ass.
And it's crazy because even though I am a judge, you still think those thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, do not come for me.
Don't do it
like that. I'm a more polished person, so of course I'm not gonna lay hands like that. I know you ain't
unless you are defending yourself. And then everybody who knows you knows your husband is like top cop in one of the districts here, the college districts, and he don't play either. Let me tell you, Chris Bailey don't play about his wife. Everybody know that.
Chris Shaw.
I always say Chris Bailey. He gonna be like, damn, you too. Chris Shaw don't play about his wife, man.
But you know what's crazy? Chris should have been a Bailey. I should have been the daughter-in-law to my parents because Chris has an individual relationship with both my parents. Yeah. He and my dad favor. Yeah. They act alike. They have so many commonalities. It's really crazy. He should have been Chris Bailey, and I should have been Vonda Shaw.
You Chris Bailey to everybody else, but let me tell you, your husband funny, man. Like, me and him got to chop it up at your event at Papa Do's. Your husband cool in the mug.
He real cool.
He laid back. He the dude that's going to be in the back. And then when I had a chance to chop it up with him when we did your court show, your husband cool in the fan, man.
He's so cool. And one thing I respect about him.
Carter High.
Carter High School.
I can't stand y'all Carter High. I went to Skyline.
Don't be a hater.
You know what I'm saying? Carter was our rival at the time. Y'all had a leg up on us. Carter High has that legacy. We got the same colors, just inverted. I know a lot of people from the Cliff, and I
it's all love.
Yeah, it's all love. But I'm a Skyline Raider to the day I die. But Carter High gave us a run for our money.
Yeah, Carter produced good people.
If we can keep it a buck, I'll say this, and I know my Carter people gonna tear. They gonna talk shit to me later. But Skyline was a fashion show, and the reason Skyline
was a fashion show.
The reason Skyline was a fashion show was because of them Carter kids that was getting busted. Argue with your mama. Samuel people didn't dress that way. Pinkston people didn't dress that way. Kimball people didn't dress that way. You name any school in the city. Them kids that got off that bus from Carter.
We were fly. And I had no idea about that culture until I got there my freshman year. Yeah. When I first walked through the doors of Carter, the class of 2000 was there. Although I graduated in class of 2003, the most fun I had in my high school career
that 2000 year.
That 2000 year.
Except for me, it was 99. The class 99 was I graduated 01. So that class of 99 at Skyline High School will forever be the most epic class next to 2001.
Yes.
But 2000, I rock with them. But
Class of
2001 at Skyline was shitting on 2000 at Skyline. Argue with your mama. But no, you're right.
Yeah.
I remember them cats. I remember some of them cats.
Man, when I went in there in 9th grade, I was looking. I mean, I thought I looked decent.
Nah, they made you step it up.
Like, it was like red carpet. And so when I went home, I told my mom, I was like, I need some new clothes.
Yeah. I just had the same conversation.
She was like, what you want to wear? So back then, it was Foley's at Redbird Mall.
Foley's and Dillon.
Foley's and
come on,
Dillon.
man, let's get it.
We went in Foley's, and I said, I want this. It was like Tommy Hilfiger.
Yeah, Polo.
Fubu, Polo.
Yeah.
And my mama said, I'm not buying all that. This stuff is so expensive. I said, Mama, I need it. We got to look like all the other kids.
So wait a minute. I got literally an identical story. So, I went to Skyline and I grew up with some cats in my neighborhood. And it was one dude who daddy bought him all the clothes. And so everybody else used to wear his clothes. You know what I'm saying? So they would switch it out. We had a homeboy that went to Carter. So he was the flyest one at Carter because he would wear all the clothes. But my freshman year, my mom was like, "Nah, I'm gonna take you down to Montgomery Ward or Woolworth or whatever, Sears. I went to Wieners. You remember Wieners, Mervyn's and Levine's. So by my junior year, my mom finally clicked into her like, let me help him get fly. I got my own money, so she started giving me her credit card. But I had to go to Samuel the first semester of my junior year. So at Samuel, everybody was wearing T-shirts and Sauconys. Like, there was no style at Samuel. Nothing shit on my Samuel brothers, but y'all know the game. White tee, orange tee, black tee, Sauconys that match. I was really one of the few people in there that had on polo and polo boots. Like my first year up there, my junior year, I got nominated for Homecoming Prince.
Yeah.
Now let's put that into context. This is my first year up there because I was fly. But I got back to Skyline and it was like I had sharpened my tool shed so good knowing how to dress by my Skyline people that I finally started blending in with the people that had decent clothes, and that was really big for us in high school. So I get it. We'll give Carter they grab. So we gonna wrap it up. We gonna hit one more topic. All right, Vonda. So let's just shift gears just a little bit. Hold on, let me pick up my notepad. I ain't gonna edit that out either because that's how I do it. So as you know, I'm starting a PAC, right? And one of the things that we're focusing on is issues related to black men, specifically black families secondarily. But we did a survey and we asked black men what mattered the most. And out of the survey, they said, trade, skilled labor training, or some type of allocation for that, whether it be at the adult level or the high school level. They talked about education in general because a lot of times when you look at the statistics of black boys, they are in last place in every statistic in high school, except discipline, right? We leave that. And then they said mental health. And then the fourth one was child support reform.
How did I know you were going to mention child support?
And honestly, I think child support reform will probably be the fastest thing to attack because I know we have some school board elections coming up and we're going to be hitting them all. But as someone, I don't mind sharing my story. I went through I put myself on child support with my son's mom. And we have a great relationship. It wasn't no beef or anything, but I had a friend of mine who's an attorney. Was like, "Hey man, put yourself on child support. Like you can control that. They'll put you on the bare minimum if you need to. Like if you take care of your kid and you in his life, you and her can set something on the side. But just get yourself documented. Don't be paying her directly." He gave me the game, and I did it. And for the most part, I navigate that system amazing. I actually got taken. My son moved in with me, so I even kept paying child support after that because it wasn't an in writing thing. And then eventually we had a conversation and I got off, you know what I'm saying? So my process on the child support, the way my child support worked wasn't like the standard way that people complain about. But I did have one bad experience when somebody at the child support office misfiled my employer. And when they were requesting the money from my employer, they were sending it to the wrong entity. And so for 2 months, nothing came out of my check. So I'm thinking, I'm at a new job, So I just put the money aside. Then I got that dirty letter in the mail. They gonna take my license. I ain't gonna be able to do all kinds of shit. And so I called and I was like, "Hey, here's my case number, my cause number, yada, yada, yada." And that lady on the other side of that phone talked to me like I had a tail, Vonda. Like she just went in on me, Vonda. And so me, I'm kind of like you. I'll sit back and let people just talk. So after she finished, I said, "Are you done?" She was like, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, so let's start over from the top." I said, first off, the company that you said that I work for is not the company I work for. If you look at my application, you'll see that I work for this company. You sent it to an entity of this company, so naturally it got rejected. I said, "So you all put that in wrong, not me." And it got real quiet. As a grandpa would say, it was so quiet you could hear a rat pissing on cotton. So then she was like, "Oh," I said, "That's where you apologize, right?" And so she apologized. And I said, secondly, if this is how you talk to me, is this how you talk to everyone? And I realized in that moment that there's a stigma when it comes to child support. There's also a stigma. You said something really important earlier in our interview. You said, I can't insert my personal opinion about something. I have to look at the facts regardless of the situation, because if somebody walks into my courtroom, I don't care if I knew you from high school and you wasn't shit back then. This ain't got nothing to do with that.
Absolutely.
I have to differentiate the two because you're here for this. But what a lot of black men that I deal with feel like is that they don't have a chance in the courts. And what I tell them is that, well, what are you doing? Because you have a lot of chance, actually, because I know men who have custody of their kids. You know, a really close family member has told me stories about how when she was taking her baby daddy to court, like the judge always sided with him. And he, you know what I'm saying? This is like, depending on who you ask, you'll get a different response. But a lot of men feel like that needs to be reformed to be more fair, because in this day and age, men are really, really involved with their kids, specifically millennials. Millennials have made it a point to be in their children's lives. Not all of them, but if you do statistics on black men being in their children's lives, we are actually probably in our kids' lives more than any other race. But the stigma is that we ain't shit. So in your opinion, and I know we might dance to some legal stuff, and I don't want to make the block too hot for you, but do you feel like there needs to be some reform with the child support system as it relates to men? Like, can you give us an opinion on the inside looking out? Because you've done it as an attorney on the outside looking in, but now that you're on the inside, can you see that there needs to be some change? And if not, what can men, specifically black men, I know you deal with everybody because you are an elected official, but for that demographic who feels like there's no hope for them or there's no opportunities, what would you say to them?
Well, I can't necessarily say reform, because when you talk about those type of things, that's more legislation. That has nothing to do with me. That's more, your job, the lobbying, going down to Austin, doing all those things. I just enforce the laws that are there. One thing I will say is when I was a practicing attorney, I did see judges do that. I did. I would see it all the time. And as a matter of fact, when I represented men, I would always prepare them in this one particular court, because I knew that particular judge favored men and not so much women. So when I represented men, I knew I was going to win that case, but I also prepared them for the outliers. But when I represented women, sometimes I tried not to represent women out of that court. But when I did represent the women, I had to paint her in a light where she was almost Mother Teresa. Because it was very evident that if anything was wrong with her that this particular judge didn't agree with, she was going to side with the guy. So I can't necessarily say that it's something that I think is wrong with the law that's giving that the bad rap. It's the individual. It's us. It's the judge that is sitting there. You should never get the inclination coming in my courtroom that I'm going to favor this person over this person for something trivial.
Speak on that, man. And I know it's different, Vonda, based on where you are, because we live in Dallas County, right? And so it's blue. It tends to be a little bit more liberal. There tends to be a lot more diversity, if that's a good word to use. Whereas if I were to go to a court, in Huntsville, Alabama, you know what I'm saying? It might be a little bit different. So I feel like it's important for men to actually get in the system from a standpoint of getting an attorney. Find someone that can go and advocate for you. And people, I can't afford an attorney. And I say, well, bullshit, man. You got on some $300 Jordans, man. Like, stop going to the club for 6 months. Stop buying bullshit for 6 months. Stack your bread and retain an attorney. Like, these are your kids. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and I think what I see often, and this happens with everybody that come in the courtroom, people just don't know. And, it doesn't matter how good of a parent that you may think you may be, but the law says certain things that you can and can't do. And the law says certain things or not that it says certain things like a specific criteria, but there are things that the law said that we look for in form of facts. And if the facts don't necessarily go in your favor, according to what the law says, although we have a ton of discretion in some cases, there are just things that we cannot do. So people in general, I always encourage them to, if you can't afford an attorney, even if you can afford an attorney, research on your own.
Right.
Look up some things. Ask questions. Like, become as knowledgeable as you can, because contrary to what people may believe, the family code from the time that I first started practicing law till now, it has evolved. And it has evolved to the point that there are dads in particular that are able to get their children more frequently.
It's changing.
Than the mother. There are, because of the way that laws are written and cases have fallen, been ruled on by the Supreme Court of Texas, there are instances where non-parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, sometimes nobody that's necessarily in a kinship can have a say-so over of a child over a parent.
That's
the
a
law,
fact.
Yeah, it has definitely evolved. So the more educated you are, the more you're able to better prepare yourself. So even though I gave that generally speaking to everybody, that's a lot that even Black men in particular can benefit from, because what I see happening too often, people think they know what they're talking about. And because they believe that they're the parent, that they should have the right to say this, or they should have the right to do this. However, if you have not been doing A, B, and C consistently this whole time, it doesn't matter what you can show when you get in court. Courts favor and case law helps the judge, right? Status quo for a kid. That's always going to be in the best interest of a child. So if you have parents who have not always been consistent, if you have parents and consistency,
Speak on it, man.
Consistency is not just paying child support. Consistency is showing up to get your kid. Consistency is when that other parent is unavailable, showing up to get your kid.
Speak on it, man.
Those type of things. All of those things matter.
They factor into the way you guys rule, decide what you allocate. My friend works with, I don't know how this happened, but I got real good with people in CPS. I got like a bunch of CPS clients that bought houses from me, and a good friend of mine is CPS. And she said, Tim, you'd be surprised what could go down at that court if you could just show consistency.
If you could show, that's literally the name of the game. I can't speak for other areas of the law.
Yeah.
But in family court in particular, because it's so fact specific, it's so fact heavy.
You either did it or you didn't.
You did. And there is some gray area, but where that gray area is, you want to be on the right side of it. Consistency is a thing. If you can show consistency, even if the other person is bring you in the courtroom and make you look like the scum of the earth, if you can show consistency in these areas, that gives us the power to say, look at that situation and say, okay, maybe they didn't do all of this, but they did do these things, and these things that they did were in the best interest of the child.
Best interest of the child. Y'all listen to me. She's telling you.
And I want to hone in on that. Best interest of the child is the hallmark of family law cases. It doesn't matter what mom feels. It doesn't matter how dad feels. It doesn't matter what anybody, the extra family members have to say, how they feel, how they think. It boils down to the best interest of the child. And the best interest of the child does not necessarily mean the parent who's more financially stable. That's not what it means. And too often people get that misconception and they bring it in the courtroom and thinking, if I can show that I can afford to take care of this child better than that other person, then I should be the parent that is designated as the one who the child lives with. Yeah. But it doesn't work like that. When I was an attorney, I had clients who were literally in transition where they've gotten out of a divorce or out of an abusive situation, and they had to live in a hotel for some time. Another parent who, in some cases, had access to, capital galore with financial resources, and some didn't necessarily have a lot of money, but they had a better living situation, and it was like, well, I can take care of the child better than them. Well, then when you break that down as an attorney, usually it comes down to finances, but you and I both know it takes more than finances.
You could have a 4-bedroom house where the kid had their own room and access to a kitchen. You could be neglecting them, you can be beating on them. They can be getting exposed to things. They can be in environments where somebody's touching on them.
They're being raised by somebody else.
They're being raised by someone else.
I mean, it's a number of factors that go into that. So I really want people to educate themselves about what it means in terms of the best interest of the child. As a matter of fact, I want everybody to Google. Everybody watching this, I want you to Google Holly factors. So Holly is a case that's out of Texas, and this is the case that is the hallmark that broke down what those best interests of the child factors are. It's 9 of them. I want people to go look them up because they're very straightforward on what they are, but they're not specific. But if you read them, the way that they're broken up into like the needs of the child, the cares of the child.
I've never heard of this before. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Look it up. Google it. Holly factors. If you Google Holly factors.
Spell
Texas,
Holly.
Holley.
Holly factors, Texas. I've never heard of this.
If you do a Google search, just put those in Holly. Put those words, Holly factors, Texas. It will pop up, and it will be all these things to tell you about best interests of the child and give you different examples of what that look like. And it even breaks it down. I cannot remember the exact website, but it helped me when I was practicing law. It broke down some of the best interest scenarios that judges would look at from the ages of a child. Like it was like 0 to 5. Because 0 to 5 is typically your non-school age.
Your nurturing age.
Your nurturing age, more close proximity, those types of things.
You have to keep an eye on them a little bit more at that
exactly.
age. Yeah.
They're between, and I think it is lower than 5 years now. I think it's 0 to 3. It is, because the family code does something different at 3 years, but from 0 to 3 is these set of standards.
I never heard of this.
After that, it goes up, and it just keeps increasing. And I love this particular resource. If you all Google the Holly Factors Texas, you may come across it, but it is literally like a stepping stone to tell you what judges, it enters the mind of a judge. And that's what I loved about it, because I could always prepare my client. If I knew that I was dealing with a child that was 12 years old, the needs of a 12-year-old is different from a 12-month-old. So all I had to do was focus in on some of these scenarios and factors that the judge would want to know about a 12-year-old.
This game, y'all. She giving y'all game. And I'm sure if you live in another state, you can probably find something very similar to that for your state. Because, again, it goes back to the needs of the child. Y'all, fellas specifically, we got to stop attaching ourselves to the stigma, the stereotype of what we think things are as it relates to the child support system. Because I can tell you, somebody who navigate that system, I only literally had that one hiccup. But for the most part, the people that I dealt with were pretty cool. Me and my son's mom didn't have issues like that either. And that also plays a factor, Judge. You know, if you still trying to be with her, you worried about who she dating.
Now that does cause friction.
It caused friction. We ain't never had that problem. we was on internet, and ain't nothing. I would never, me and her, she probably watched this shit and laugh. Like, we never had that problem. It was like, hey.
But it's common, and when you're talking about feelings being involved, and then you're still trying to maintain somewhat of a secret relationship, and you are still trying to navigate parenting, it makes it complicated, and it muddies the water. So I encourage all parents, as best you can, work together. Y'all don't have to like each other. I tell people this when they come in court all the time. Look, you're a good mom. You're a good dad. Stop telling her that she needs to do this. Stop telling him that he needs to do this. You know why? Because at the end of the day, this child is 50% of your makeup, 50% of your makeup. So you say anything damaging about the other person, you're damaging half of how that child sees themselves.
Man, say that again. Oh, that's crazy, man. Like, I'm so glad you said that. And it's like, me and my son's mom always ran the relationship like a corporation. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, what does he need? What do you need? We always took our feelings out of it. And I ain't gonna say that. I don't believe that she's ever just sat around and shitting on me. That's not the type of person she is anyway. She got too much pride to do that. And I've never talked about her around him. Like, that's just not, our relationship was our relationship. That ain't got nothing to do with you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But being very personal, I'm gonna give a very personal scenario. My mother and my father were divorced, and my mother got remarried, and I had a stepfather, Charles. Charles, I know you're gonna watch this. Charles he's a man's man, hunt, fish. He cussed, still starches jeans to this day. So I always had a good man around, and I had my uncles, but my mom never talked about my father. She always made sure that I called him on his birthday. She always made sure I called him on every holiday, Father's Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving. She would send me out to visit him in the summer. She never gave me details about the relationship. She would always say as a child, you need to build that relationship with your father.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm in my 40s, and I'm sure he'll watch this too, because he follows everything that I do. My mother passed away recently, so I don't know how it works. He was still paying child support on me because he had dodged it for so long, and it finally caught up to him. Like, my father was still paying child support on me, and I'm 40. And
That's the thing.
So, and somebody's like, you need to get it extended. I'm like, I'm good. You know what I'm saying?
No, but that's the thing. So whenever you owe child support and you fall into what people refer, the common term is back child support, but it's arrearages. That's the formal term. Arrearages never go away. It's the debt, and it doesn't even
does it transfer over?
I was gonna say it. No, but it doesn't even go away when you pass away. So if you
so he has an estate, I can.
Your estate has to pay those.
I ain't gonna do that to you, man. I don't want. I know
debt.
it's legal. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have any qualms with my biological father whatsoever. There's no hard feelings. There's no bad blood. The point I was making was though, she never shitted on him, but every time I would go around him, he would shit on her. I mean, he would just talk so bad about my mom, and it's like as a child, it's like I don't need to know what y'all went through in y'all marriage. I'm 12. And I'll never forget as an adult, I was like 22 or 23. He had come to Dallas with my little sister. And, I was like, hey, man, we ain't had the best relationship. Like, I don't give a fuck about what happened in the past. Let's just start over fresh. And he immediately went into talking shit about my mom. And I cut him off. I was like, bruh, my mama don't talk about you, man. She don't give a fuck about you. Now, that may not be the case for everybody. I'm just using my situation because she understood that it was important for me to have that relationship with you. And so I say that to say, fellas, when you're navigating that situation, like keep your kids' mama name out your mouth outside of what time you picking them up and what time you dropping them off. You should never try to shape the minds of your child. I don't care if she a dope fiend. Like, don't shit on that person because you're fearing that they're doing it to you and they may be doing it. And if they are doing it to you and you're not doing anything back, that actually makes you look better long term because that child is going to become an adult and that child is going to realize who's who eventually.
They will. And, I try to encourage people not to do that because in addition to damaging their self-identity, you also damage your relationship with that child.
100%.
And I don't think that parents take that into consideration. So when people come to court and, when a child is at least age 12, it is by law that we have to speak to them if it's requested. We can't say, I don't want to do it. It's not discretionary at all. 12 years or older, we have to talk to them. Now, and I want to clear up this misconception. The judge speaking to them doesn't mean they get their way. That's not what it is. The code says they get to tell who they would like to live with. I mean, of course, I'm paraphrasing. It says they get to express who they want to live with, but in addition to their expression, we as the judge have to find that it is in their best interest.
In the best interest of the child.
So even if you want to live with this parent, if with this parent your grades have fallen because history have shown that when you live with this parent, you didn't have a curfew, there was no disciplinary anything going on, your grades plummeted, you were late to school, truancy was at risk. Even if you want to live with this parent, if living with that parent brings along those issues, that's not in your best interest. So you may not want to live with this parent because they get on your nerves, whatever the case may be. And if we find that it's in the best interest for you to stay here because your grades will stay where they need to be, is more structure, then that's what you're going to have to do.
No, it's funny you say that because I feel like I'm the outlier in that because my son, he'll tell you, my dad get on my nerves. Like, he don't. I'm strict. I run a tight ship.
I'm the exact same way.
You hear me? I run a tight ship, Judge. But when my son do some shit he ain't got no business doing, I'll say, man, you can just move back with your mama. He's like, no, I don't want to move back home with my mama. You know what I'm saying? I love my mom. I love my family because, she's married and they have a family. And he has great. I always tell him, you're in the best situation. You got two parent, two houses. You know what I'm saying?
I think that is so cool, and I think it's so
and they're amazing.
healthy.
Like his mom and stepdad are good people. You know what I'm saying? Like they have they're doing well. But his thing is he wants to be around me full time because he understands the value of being around his dad. My nephew was the same way with his dad. He wanted to live with his dad after a certain time. And I believe that boys, depending on the best interest of the child, they should be with their fathers after a certain age because mom can nurture you so much, but dad needs to teach you how to be a man. Now, if you a fuck boy, you can't teach him how to be a man. Maybe he need to be over there with his stepdad. You know what I'm saying? Which was in my case, and I call my dad a fuck boy. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna disrespect him at all. But in my case, it benefited me more to stay with my mom and my stepdad. Mm-hmm. But I'm so glad you said that because I think a lot of men have the game. They're playing a new game with an old set of rules. These child support rules have changed so much over time, and they've evolved, and even the interpretation of certain things may evolve based on who's in that bench. So I strongly encourage men, specifically black men, to make an effort to be in your child's life because the school, as long as you ain't got no record, they're not going to stop you from being able to go up there to volunteer. They're not going to be able to stop you eat lunch with them. If I had a child that the parent wouldn't let me see, and I'm petty, I would go sign up to be a volunteer at that school, and on my days off, or I would take my time. People say, well, what if I work at this job? Man, we always find a way to get to the club. We always find a way to go to Miami and spring break. We always find a way to do everything. Find a fucking way for your kids, man, because they're going to remember that when they become our age. They're going to say, man, my dad did not give up. And
that's and to that point, it's very important because in those interviews that I mentioned with these kids, they get very honest. And they say things that, I couldn't even imagine some of the things that they have experienced and some of the ways that they've been mistreated, and not because of anything they necessarily done wrong, but just being in the middle of a feud between parents that don't get along. And it's really unfortunate.
Not being able to take their clothes home because daddy bought it or mom bought it. It'd be some petty shit going on, man.
It gets absolutely petty, and it's so ridiculous. And, when you're doing all of that, you don't realize that the only person, literally the only person that gets hurt in that situation is the child. Yeah. And they ask me questions, and being a judge is certain things that I'm prohibited from answering. Right. And then even the things that I can't answer them the exact way that I really need to, because I have to keep in mind this is a child.
It's a child.
And I don't want the child to think that based on what I say or how I say something, that I'm favoring one of their parents over the other. So it's a very slippery slope. But I love talking to children. Every time I talk to children, I learn something new about myself.
That's deep. And that's why I mentor. I agree. I know
every
that feeling.
Single time.
The kids in my mentoring program have taught me more about life than any lesson I've ever learned.
Yes.
Because kids are honest.
And they haven't even been here that long.
Yeah, they're honest.
They are super honest, and they are very inquisitive. And the things that you think they don't know or they don't pay attention to, they come and they talk about it. And even some of the things that they're interested in, which this can be heartbreaking too, some of the things that they may even be interested in, they don't get to discuss it outside of talking about it to me. Because if it's something that dad wants them to do that mom doesn't, they can't talk about it at mom's house.
That's deep.
Or if it's something that mom wants
Vonda.
the child to do, they can't talk about it at dad's house. So I would encourage parents, again, as best as you can, put this child at the forefront, regardless to if you don't like each other or not. Of course, doing something like that is easier said than done. Who wants to deal with a person they don't like? Who wants to deal with a person that, especially if they were in a long-term relationship or even in a marriage, that they know based on history, that doesn't listen, that narcissistic, that is, they just think they know everything and it's either their way or the highway. You put all of that aside.
For that kid.
And you think about that kid first.
Yes, absolutely.
Your moves. You move totally different.
For that child. I'm so glad I didn't have that issue with me and my son's mom. I keep telling her we need to write a book because we literally have the blueprint of what it looks like. We've never argued, ever fought in front of him. There's never been a fight. When he was getting to a certain age and was struggling in school and he was living with her, and he was struggling in school because he was being mistreated differently because he's the only black kid in a white environment. So he moved with me. It's always been a partnership that we needed. So I appreciate you for weighing in on that because, men, you need to understand that your thoughts of that system isn't what that system is. And we're here to create change where needed, but you're also going to have to get up and go down there and figure it out and see what's going to work for you. So let me wrap it up on this note. Normally I always ask, I do my whole Back to the Future spiel. If you can go back, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to give the precursor because we got to go. You could go back 3 years ago and see yourself walking down the street, and you want to give yourself one piece of advice that you needed or that you think that could have made some changes, or you wish you would have known 3 years ago that you know now, what would it be? Just 3 years before you took the seat, before you just really get into your campaign. What's that one thing you would tell yourself?
Take more counseling sessions.
Ooh, like personal counseling, like going to go see a therapist.
Going to see a therapist, absolutely.
You want to expound? You want 60 seconds to expound on that?
Absolutely. I think in our society, specifically more so in the Black community, growing up as a kid, that was played in our community. That wasn't something you talked about. Whenever I used to make, jokes and tell my mom that I need to go see a therapist or something, she said, girl, you just need to pray about it. And it was always downplayed. But the older I've gotten, I've realized that is something that my parents were not necessarily educated on either. It's been something generationally passed down that is cursed our society and is frowned upon, but it's something that definitely would have helped me more. I took therapy sessions. I didn't take as many as I should have at that time. Not just because I didn't want to, but, life happens. You get busy with other things that you believe should take a priority, but your mental health should always come first.
It should.
So I would definitely tell myself 3 years ago, take more therapy sessions, because therapy allows you to dig deep and it allows you to see things from the outside in. And it pulls things from the inside out as well, and things that you didn't probably even know that you needed to work on, some behaviors. And I definitely think I could have benefited a lot more from more therapy sessions. That's
dope. That's actually confirming, because, as you know, my mother passed away about 30 days ago, and I've been actually saying that I'm going to go to grief counseling, because I'm going through the grief process, and every day is different, And one thing I keep doing, which is the strangest thing, is I keep misplacing stuff. And so I start researching. That's a part of grief. Like, I'm not losing it. I'm just misplacing it. You know what I'm saying? And then some days I wake up and I'm feeling good, and some days I just feel like shit. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh, I forgot I'm going through grief, So I appreciate you for sharing that. Well, listen, Judge Vonda, I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. For one, giving me your time. Like, this was so random. Like, we just kind of text each other. I said, I want to come check on you and just talk to you about some things I got going on. And you were like, man, let's hop on the podcast and have this conversation. So I appreciate you for even doing that, because I wasn't even thinking about asking you. Like, I kind of do this thing where I be thinking people too busy, because I feel like I'm busy, so I don't ask. So I appreciate you for even volunteering this, and it's been amazing. But where can people find you?
I'm at the courthouse, George Allen Courthouse.
Because you have to fall back on social media a little bit, huh?
On my show, yes.
Yeah.
My show that's on YouTube, but it's still there. If anybody want to go back and watch old episodes, if there's anybody new here, you can go get you a good laugh. Watch Tim's episode,
AKA Drummer the Plumber.
Drummer the Plumber, talking about chicken wings and such. But I'm very active on social media.
You are.
I have a Facebook page, Vonda Bailey Shaw's verified. Instagram page, Judge Vonda B, also verified. TikTok's they moving too slow in the verification. I don't know what's going on with that. But I'm Judge Vonda B on TikTok as well. I do videos when I can. I really want to do more videos because I have so much stuff going on. But I have been very intentional about being in the moment, which is why I don't post as many everyday videos as I would like to.
I'm trying to get there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get there. She got some imposter pages, so make sure it's the verified page.
Yeah, the verified page.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did take some time to actually get there. But I did realize that when I looked through my phone one day, I had nothing but pictures of everything that I have done on every single vacation, every single conference that I did, and not more memories about interaction.
Damn, that's deep. That's deep.
I wanted more memories versus pictures, because with the memories, I can remember how I felt in that moment.
That's deep. I needed that. Well, listen, I really did need that, and I appreciate you for that. Well, listen, guys, it's been a No More OGs podcast. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe. We're on YouTube, Instagram. Everything's going to be down in the show notes. We want to thank Judge Vonda for coming and chopping up this game with us. Dallas County, we got to do better by elected officials. We got to start holding people accountable. It's not personal. You know, if you're being put in that position, you need to do what you're supposed to be doing, and you need to allow people like the community and people like your peers to be able pull your coattails sometimes and check you, because that's the only way that we can improve. All right, y'all. That's the end of the show. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.